Greetings, traveller. Please stay a while and listen. Hello, everybody. It's AJ, and you're back with another monster video. This is another playable race. Woo! And for those of you who caught my music video, I just uploaded last night. Haha! That wasn't the actual video for this weekend. That was just me having some fun. And no, I'm not going to link any of the original songs from that. You can go find them yourself because YouTube will crucify me. Even though I've got it demonetized, I don't want any copyright strikes against me, and I'm not sure what the legality of the original videos was because I just found them as I was trolling through and looking at things. But enough about that. Today we're going to cover the Tabaxi. Yay! One of the new monster races that you can play. I really love Tabaxi. I've got an NPC in my game at the moment who has been basically taken over by one of the player characters because their soul got transferred into it, but that's a long story. So Tabaxi come through from the Faerun Forgotten Realms setting, and I'm going to talk about the mysterious land where they come from, as well as give you some information on Tabaxi and what they are, what they do, and some stuff that you don't know about Tabaxi, unless you've read all of the stuff about Tabaxi that I read. I should point out, for the people who think that I know everything about every monster, I don't. I really don't. These videos are also me researching monsters as well, so sometimes I go into it just as ignorant as anybody else about what these monsters are, but through sources that I find online, such as Wikipedia's. There's various Wikipedias for Faerun, the general Wikipedia. I also have basically every Dungeon magazine and Dragon magazine, so I can go back and reference monster ecology articles and things from those old editions. And I can also go through a back catalogue of lots and lots of monster manuals that I've collected over the years to compare old versions of monsters with the modern 5th edition ones. But I concentrate on the modern 5th edition of the game. And if that relates to your monsters in Pathfinder, all the best to you. And if you're playing earlier editions of the game, all the best to you also. You may want to update some of the versions of the monsters in the old school game, which is just as good. So I have no prejudice either way. I also played 4th edition as well, so if you have any questions about 4th edition stats and monsters and how to adapt them and things, you can also ask me in the comment section down below. I welcome any question. So the quote here we have from Volo's Guide to Monsters is from Toblin Stonehill, an innkeeper. Stonehill, I'm guessing he's a dwarf. We had a Tabaxi come through once, a few winters back. She kept the tap room packed each night with her stories, and spent most days napping at a chair in front of the fireplace. We thought she was lazy, but when Lenine came around looking for a missing brooch, she was out the door before you could blink an eye. So they hail from a strange and distant land, and that is the land of Maztica. So I'll talk about Maztica, and here it is on the Forgotten Realms map, way over here across the Shining Sea. Past the Moonshae Isles, and past the Elven lands. So called by its inhabitants the True World, is a continent that is a land of jungles, and to the Faerunians as a whole, it's a mystery. Early in its history, it was a land fought over by the gods called the Quatal and the Plumed Serpent. Quatal the Plumed Serpent and his brother Zeltek, and for that was against a crime against his sister. Quatal retreated from Maztica for an age, but returned in recent times. It was discovered, this land, by a Faerunian Armenian explorers led by Captain General Cordell and his Golden Legion in 1361. Dale Reckoning. I wonder if that's related to Bruce Cordell. Bruce, if you're listening to this video, is he named after you? And Arn was quick to carve out its claim to the land for trade benefits, establishing a port city called Helmsport, and the Church of Helm led the encroachment into that new land. So it was a religious crusade as much as it was anything else, but it was also monetary and basically suppression and getting new resources for Arn. The native species the peoples were devastated by the foreign diseases and the ruthlessness of the invaders. So essentially, in Forgotten Realms, you can play out the what should we call it? The conquistadors' invasion of South America, and you can play out that sort of thematic element in your game in Faerun, because you can play any sort of game in Forgotten Realms. So the native peoples, they were devastated by this, and coupled with the difficulties encountered on Mazdagar backfiring against them, the Church of Helm came under heavy criticism, particularly as Lantan also claimed some lands, and there was a lot of infighting and politics between the two. So Mazdagar is divided into the nations of Nixal, Kultaka, Huakul, Kulan, Pisalak, and Pickett, and the region known as Far Pickett, Neighbours Pickett, and both are in the east and around Helmsport. So there is human settlement there still, and they will have more common dealings with the Tabaxi and also wild halflings and sharks, which are jaguar spirits from Veraltold, and Quattle come to Mazdagar to fight Yaunti of Chult, anyway. So the native people of Pickett and Far Pickett are known as Picketts, whereas natives from other regions are known as Mazdagans. So they're just lumped into a general whole, and they also the human race is known as the Dog People and the Green Folk come from there. Many monstrous races, and that includes the wild halflings, are considered a monstrous race. So yeah, Sun Scorpion folk from Mazdagar found an Underdark passage to the Underdark of Faerun. So there's a route through the Underdark following the Scorpion folks' route back to Mazdagar. So if you want to avoid the ocean journey, but of course it's a very long way. And north of Mazdagar is the continent of Ankelchrome, and south of it, and separated by a strait of water, lies an unknown continent, which is covered in other things. So Mazdagar was detailed for 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons in the Mazdagar campaign setting by Douglas Niles, and the Forgotten Realms novels in the Mazdagar trilogy, Iron Helm, Viper Hand, and the Feathered Dragon, also by Douglas Niles. So yeah, Mazdagar is the name of the elder goddess who embodied the land of Mazdagar, and she was killed by her own son Zeltek, and she was the wife of the dead Kukul, but unlike the husband, continues to live on in the continued existence of the continent. So she's embodied in shrines and things of ancient origin, which goes right back to the time of the creator races. In 4th edition, the spell player caused Mystra's death and caused Aber and Toril to briefly merge and instantly rip apart again, and as a result, Mazdagar is no longer part of Toril, having been replaced by a continent called Returned Aber. However, that's different now. And of course, Tabaxi are in your game now, so you can include Mazdagar to your heart's content. So that's their land, and they will have many stories about it. So it's a jungle land, and I'll just go about talk about their ecology back home, where they're from. So they have few natural enemies in their homeland, apart from the wild halflings and Yaunti and other types of things. For food, they prefer boar-like peccaries and huge rodents called capybaras. So any South American type animal that you want to include there, you can include. So only very degenerate clans attack members of other intelligent species for food. Tabaxi are sometimes, however, hunted for pelts themselves, and they can sell for up to 250 gold pieces back on Mazdagar, and probably even more if one of them finds its way all the way to Faerun, if people don't know that it possibly came from an intelligent race, or maybe even more if they do know that it came from an intelligent race. Their skins and claws are also useful in various types of natural magic. So there's a sub-race, kind of Tabaxi called Tabaxi Lords, and they are a much different kettle of fish. So Tabaxi Lord appears as a huge jaguar or leopard style humanoid, and they are intelligent and malicious and cunning, and they're kind of like when a goblin tribe gets taken over by like one hobgoblin or one bugbear. So they're like the bugbears of the Tabaxi. They are big, they are very strong, they are skilled and intelligent, and they're very dominant. They use trickery, ambush, and they use spells to weaken foes before combat. So about half of them are wizards, while slightly less of them are priests of a dark power called Zaltek, and many of them, a few of them combine both wizard and priest abilities into one. So they're quite difficult to contend with, as well as being martially proficient just in their natural form. So they're kind of like a non-demon Rakshasa, really. They also use enchantment and charm and necromancy and skills of illusion as well. So they're very similar in many ways. Maybe, possibly, they have some sort of demonic influence in them, kind of like a tiefling of the Tabaxi. But that's just a supposition. So the bravest and the cruelest of the Tabaxi Lords can use Dimension Door 3 times a day, which really does kind of point towards them having some sort of demonic influence or extra-dimensional, planar thing. They have the following powers: detect good and evil, detect invisibility, bind, and hypnotism, typically. And they are closely related to Tabaxi. They interbreed, but they don't produce females. Whenever a Tabaxi Lord mates with a Tabaxi, they produce probably a male Tabaxi Lord, but they don't produce any females. Kind of like, I don't know, some breeds of cat are a little bit weird like that. So yeah, that's really when they interact with Tabaxi. They will take over the clan in order to secure themselves mates. And some of those clans choose to stay with the Lord, and they basically bend their will towards evil. So that's where you get the bad guy Tabaxi. But for the most part, the populations of Tabaxi in Maztica are very peaceful, sort of hunter-gatherer, types. They dwell in tropical, subtropical jungles and clans of equal parts male and female, kind of egalitarian hunter-gatherer groups. They're called hunts, and our clan usually consists of several of these hunts. So they're like smaller prides, family prides that are bound together and cohabitate without any sort of aggression against each other. The hunts work the area around the clan lair, and some lairs are temporary, but most small villages of Ramadas, which are huts with grass roofs supported by poles and no walls, basically just like a grass shed. And the lair will typically contain some young Tabaxi plus elder who leads the clan, and half of these elder leaders are aided by a shaman or druid, and kind of both. And there's a few of them who owe allegiance to a Tabaxi lord or two, or who have had dealings with them. And clans, those clans that include those who have influenced by the Tabaxi Lord, of course, have evil and warlike ways, and their shamans will typically worship evil powers, but otherwise not. And shamans of clans not under the control of Tabaxi Lords worship powers related to sunlight, rain, and animals, so they're sort of animistic and nature-loving. As a whole, they're a reclusive race and avoid other intelligent beings, even other Tabaxi clans. They're shy and skittish like cats, and they do not engage in trade, which they consider demeaning. But some few have agents who trade for them, other races that they're allied with. And Tabaxi speak their own accented language, and it's an ancient language that's been around for yonks. And legends tell of great Tabaxi civilization that was supplanted by other races. So perhaps in the time after the creator races did their thing, the Tabaxi were an offshoot of some experiment that just basically took over and took over the infrastructure of an ancient civilization and called it their own. So, but things would have fallen into disrepair, and of course they will tell stories of their great empire and probably gloss over the fact that none of the stuff was their own. So Tabaxi have solid spots and are also called leopard men from where they're from, and some others may describe them that way. So in traditional D&D, they look more leopard-like than house cat-like, but I am in favour of having a great amount of variety. Just like domestic cats, you can have all types of different types of Tabaxi. So you can have Manx or Siamese or Tabby types, you name it. Maybe even a hairless type. They pronounce their name as Tabaxi, and in other regions they may call it Tabaxi. Tabaxi. So the T may be kind of silent. or combined with the X or whatever. And other regions also have more jaguar type features, is more common. So yeah. Right. Now, as they're described in the Volo's guide here, they're described as wandering outcasts. So really what you're seeing in a description of a playable race here is the Tabaxi who are of a disposition that sends them away from their homelands. So this is a rare individual, a rare breed. So you're not going to get big groups of these Tabaxi. They're going to be the uncle travelling Matt who travels across the world of Faerun, or possibly even to other worlds, through just a natural wanderlust. So these would be, strays, if you want to call them such a thing. So they hunt for food and goods and craft things themselves. They're more crafty than Tabaxi back home and are not above trade. But they largely keep themselves by nature and they are never satisfied with staying around anywhere. So, yeah. They worship the Cat Lord, it's described here, the divine figure responsible for creation of the Tabaxi, and give gifts. Gifts each of the children have one. The Cat Lord gives each Tabaxi a trait of cat kind. So some are climbers, some can see very well at night, and some are just wanderers. They seek out stories, artifacts, and lore. They're just relentlessly curious. And those who survive this period of wanderlust return home in the elder years to share news of the outside world, and in this manner Tabaxi remain isolated but never ignorant of the world beyond their home. And of course they've got a human settlement not too far away as well that they can go and investigate, who has contact with the continent of Faerun. And so some of them may also travel through the Underdark as well, who knows. So in Tabaxi's eyes, gathering wealth is like packing rations for a long trip. So they do not seek to acquire great wealth. They seek to acquire trinkets and investigate those trinkets and then discard them. So they're basically going after one shiny thing after another, which is a good way to be as a player character, not getting too attached to things, just seeing things as intrinsically useful or curious and worthy of investigation, but otherwise getting rid of them and not forming too much of an attachment to them. Kind of like the opposite of how my player characters play Dragonborn. They love the aspect of dragons hoarding a treasure, so they will seek gold coins above anything. So although material wealth holds little attraction for the Tabaxi, they have an insatiable desire to find and inspect ancient relics, magical items, and other rare objects. And aside from the power such items confer, the Tabaxi takes great joy in unraveling the stories behind the creation and history of their use. So they will go and investigate sacred sites, not so much for the sacred sites themselves, but because of the rumor that the possibility that the sacred site may be undiscovered or unransacked and have objects of great interest that are relics of ancient cultures and things like that, or that hold mystery. So a puzzle box to a Tabaxi is the greatest thing ever. That's what they dream about acquiring. They have some interesting tables here for their obsessions and quirks, and they encourage you to have a succession of obsessions. So one day you'll be obsessed about, blue gems, and you want to get the biggest blue gem that you can find, or somebody will have told you the next day about some wizard's secret book, and you'll become obsessed with finding that. So that's great. And of course these fleeting fancies may frustrate others because Tabaxi are skittish and unpredictable, and they may go off on a tangent, following their tail or chasing their tail or chasing a tail. Tabaxi names, they have a single name determined by the clan based on a complex formula that involves astrology, prophecy, clan history, and other esoteric factors. Tabaxi names can apply to both males and females, and most use nicknames derived from or inspired by their full names. And they give a list of Tabaxi names as Cloud on the Mountaintop, nickname Cloud, Five Timber, nickname Timber, Jade Shoe, Left-Handed Hummingbird, etc., etc. And they come from clans that are described by where they are from, such as Bright Cliffs or Distant Rain, Great Tree, Snoring Mountain, Babbling Brook, that sort of thing. But essentially they're a mercurial creature that makes for an excellent rogue type or bard type character, but they also, due to their love of unlocking mysteries, may take very well to the study of magic. And of course, they have no alignment or player class restrictions or even background restrictions, so they can really have quite a varied career behind them before they reach you as a player character. They may even have been a hermit or some sort of religious acolyte, or a pirate. Who knows? They have an ability score which is dexterity increases by 2 and your charisma score increases by 1. And they have a similar lifespan to humans, although they have a slightly different developmental rate. They grow up faster, and they stay pretty agile until they're quite venerable. But that's fairly typical of most types of things. Also, if you're looking up the Forgotten Realms setting, you may also be confused by Tabaxi is also a name used by a group of humans on the Chultan Peninsula who worship a deity called Uptau. And they're not related, of course, in any way to the Tabaxi from Maztica. Yeah. So that's about it, really. In the Forgotten Realms, they are very cool. In other settings, really, they could have all sorts of different origins or backgrounds and things. They could be a mage-bred creature. However you want to insert them into Eberron or stuff like that, feel free. They are taller on average than humans, relatively slender. Their size is medium. The base walking speed is 30 feet. They've got dark vision, similar to an elf. You can see in dim light out to 60 feet, as if it was bright light, and in darkness as if it was dim light. But of course they can't see colour, only shades of grey, and they can't see in magical darkness. They've got feline agility, so reflexes and agility allow them to move with bursts of speed. And this is quite a cool ability, which I'm sure power gamers out there are going to take great advantage of. When you move on your turn in combat, you can double your speed until the end of the turn. However, you can't do that again until you've spent a turn and moved 0 feet on one of those turns. So you can do dashes of speed, dash, rest, dash, rest, dash, rest. You can do other things on that round, just not move. So you can take off with dashing bursts of speed all over the place. So double your speed. That means you can dash at double the speed. So 30 becomes 60 becomes 120 feet, which is a huge distance, really. And of course, they've got natural claws. Because of your claws, you can climb with a base speed of 20 feet, and I see no reason why you can't dash climb as well. And in addition, your claws are natural weapons. So they do 1d4 plus your strength modifier slashing damage instead of bludgeoning damage normal for an unarmed strike. I remember back in the day, basically you had to be proficient in hand-to-hand combat, like fisticuffs. But Tabaxi are natural brawlers with those claws, and I would encourage you to use them to intimidate or express your emotions and things. And if you're frightened, your claws may slip out, They have a perception proficiency and stealth proficiency. And that's just natural. They don't have to select it. And of course, they can read and write Common as well as one other language of your choice. And I would also include, of course, the Tabaxi language, which they would share with others of their kind. But of course, it's probably a dialectal language that's spread across Maztica, because Maztica is fairly large and their clans are fairly insular and isolated, so they'll develop their own dialects themselves. So that's about enough on the Tabaxi. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'll be back again next weekend with another monster video.